All right. The YouTube last semester.
Is it easier?
I don't know. I can hit one button and it live streams, and with all the students in the annex, they're like half people watched live, half like watched it on YouTube.
And those streams just stay on YouTube.
Exactly. Yeah. What up, team? Okay. Good afternoon. If I can get everyone's attention, please. If you all in the back can't see me, please come forward. I sent you all an email link too with like a YouTube stream that's going to be a live stream recording of this little demo here. So if you can't see the screen, or if it's little fuzzy, those of you in the back especially, feel free to pop open that YouTube link. We're gonna not spend too long doing a little demo here, but want to spend half an hour, 45 minutes. Me and Gidon kind of talking about some ways we think we can move forward this week to make the next iteration of your models. First things first, the Moreau board is really empty. So part of the agreement in the syllabus, which is a contract between you guys and the teachers, is that you guys are going to upload progress images every single week. Okay, so when we see empty Moreau boards, we assume no progress. It's very simple. I would like you guys to get in the habit every week. You could do it end of the day. Thursday is a great time. Set aside like 20 minutes maybe at the end of class on Thursday to document whatever it is that you did. Maybe it's on Friday, but at some point every week, make a documentation of what you did. It does not mean it has to be like your quote final images of the models. It doesn't mean it has to be like perfect renderings of your digital models. It's literally just screenshots and iPhone or Android photos of whatever you've got. Progress. We're doing this not to torture you guys, but to turn you into like productive, effective coworkers. When you guys go graduate and you're gonna start working in teams, if you have a habit already installed of like constantly sharing, like oversharing your work and your process, your bosses and your colleagues are going to be super grateful, and you will remain employed. If you're of the type of person who says, no, I just work at my desk and I'm only going to show you when it's good and when I'm satisfied and when it's, quote, done, you will not be employed for very long. So this is kind of a way to set up healthy habits for your future employment, but also for just where we are right now, studio, in school. And your homework, if you guys need me to tell you, your homework in order to get a grade is to upload your progress. So please do so. We see a couple on here. So for those of you who did upload something, fantastic. We love it. What we're hoping to achieve by today is a few, using Georgia as an example here, like 3 physical models. And when you've been testing these ideas, where we're remixing these 2 different plans together. And this week, we would like you to first finish this, because I'm not seeing pictures, I'm gonna assume it's not done, so finish that. But we're also gonna move into starting to craft some digital models, so some digital kind of mock-ups to help us think about how maybe these physical models can be created, but definitely to help us think about the next assignment. We're gonna have basically one more official assignment before the midterm, which is going to be like a digital drawing of one of these ideas. So you've been kind of amassing a little family of ideas. So you're going to eventually pick one, you're going to elaborate. But for this week, you're going to continue iterating, you're going to continue designing. So the goal for this week is to like keep working, keep designing. Don't pick a favorite quite yet. You should be considering multiple options, okay? I did want to maybe start with a little graphic novel here. I showed you guys some images last year from my friend Jimenez Lai, who runs the firm Bureau Spectacular. He wrote this graphic novel, Citizens of No Place, that imagines different kind of architectural conceits seen through the lens of 2 astronauts. It's basically a stand-in for him and his friend Andrew Kovacs to have arguments and discussions about architecture, and he uses the format of the graphic novel to kind of illuminate different qualities of architecture. And I use architecture in like a capital A sense, like kind of embedded things that any architect, anyone who's been through school can like maybe get in a debate about. It's kind of the Socratic process here seen through the lens. I think this is Jimenez and this is Andrew, the big guy with the mustache. But this was a particular story about this kind of depressed figure. There's a lot of depressed figures in his stories who is in space, and so there's not really gravity. And he's thinking about how this grid of space can deform to the human body, and thinking about how different programs or different uses, this kind of relates a little bit back to what we did last year when we did the body drawings for 172, thinking about how the human body may deform space if we kind of privilege certain dimensions on it. But these diagrams in particular are something that me and Godone are thinking that you guys should maybe contemplate and spend some time looking at. He's got some extra stuff like these kind of day life cycles and breaking down, how much of each day one might spend working and excreting and eating and sleeping. I'm gonna keep scrolling here. You guys can read this. But this culminated in an installation in the gallery, which was kind of a test fit of this idea, where there was a static grid, kind of a perfect box grid of points. They were made with string, and there was little tennis balls at the corners, and you could walk in this gallery and you could push the tennis balls and it would deform the entire grid. And so we like this idea that maybe you're starting with the basic grid from the precedents, and you're starting to deform them to think about how it might change into something different as you get more vertical. So anyway, I just wanted to come back to the precedent here, the plans in Rhino, and make sure you guys are thinking about the proper scale and size of these things. So again, this plan I brought in, and there already is a drawing where I can tell that if I type distance, And I do the distance between here. It says 13 feet, and that's based off of the drawing. I just traced this thing. And this is the Reliance building on the left, and then this is the MVRDV Expo. This is a fun one because every floor is a different type of structural truss. The green box that's sitting here, this is like your square. This is the 50-foot by 50-foot square, which is a 6-inch by 6-inch by 6-inch square at 1/8 inch equals a foot scale, right? So 6 times 8 is 48. That's how we're getting this size. And so we can see if I overlay this on top of the plan, I'm only cutting out a little portion of it. I'm only cutting out like a little bit of this overall plan. The same deal for this big guy here, okay? So what I could do is take my plans, I'm gonna copy them down, and I'm gonna just use, say, a rectangle, and the trim command, and I'm gonna trim out parts of this plan that I don't want. Trim, like that, for example. Like maybe I just want the outside of this, and I'm gonna be thinking about the relationship of these boxes to the curtain wall. For this one, maybe I know that this floor plate, what looks like 2 little boxes is actually because I'm cutting a floor plate, or cutting the plan through like 3 feet above the floor. This is actually a V-shaped truss, right? But I'm cutting through it a little bit higher, so it looks like 2 columns, right? 2 kind of vertical things, but it's really from a center point going out to a V. And I should have bring my lines with. The pink is just circles and squares already traced here. So again, I'm going to use the trim command, and I'm going to trim out the outside. So I can just trim this one. So I can imagine, and I can maybe delete some of these ones, because maybe I don't care about these columns so much. And I'm going to delete every other one except for these, and I can tell these ones are kind of arranged in a circle a little bit. It's actually like, it's like an apple circle, kind of a squish square, a squircle as they call it. But I want to use these 2 things, and I'm going to rotate this and think about how it can sit maybe inside of here. And then in Rhino, you're always copying things off to the side. I'm maybe gonna delete these, and I'm kind of left with some other squares here. And I want you to really break it down to its basic points. Or break the 3D information down to its basic 3D information. Remember, everything in Rhino is kind of starting from points. 2 points connected make a line. A line extruded creates a surface, and a surface extruded creates a box. Right? That's kind of how we get to something that's 3D or volumetric. But we start from points. And so maybe a way to think about this is to draw points. And I've got a little layer here for points at the center point of these squares and these circles maybe. You're gonna always be choosing to kind of ignore some information and privilege other information. So these little squares, I'm gonna delete. These are the squares from the MVRDV plan. It kind of fits on top of this, so I'm gonna use the Reliance square plan, and I'm gonna use the MVRDV circle, the circular columns, and kind of mash these together and think about, as I go vertically through this, how that might open up. The curtain in this case is the bay window, which is represented by this blue line. So I'm not modeling the mullions. I'm not modeling the thickness of the wall necessarily yet. I'm just representing this, quote, curtain, this wrapper that goes around the outside as a single line. Maybe this attaches around the outside to there. I can imagine this is more the curtain, right? We got curtain in blue, and then the columns kind of in pink or the frames in pink. Okay, so at this point we can do some things like measure your piece of wood. So you can, take. Let's see, who's got a piece of wood here. So you can take, you want to use a scale, right? But we can use a regular ruler and figure out how thick this stuff is. So this is 1/8, so it's a foot in the narrow dimension, and it is 2 feet in the other dimension. So one thing you can do is make little rectangles that are 1 foot by 2 foot, and I could move this to my center point. So the pink is what I traced, but maybe now at this point, since I'm making a new model out of this particular piece of wood, I'm gonna make a new rectangle that's gonna be just that. And we can think about extruding this. So I'm in 3D now, taking this column and extruding it, I don't know, some height. And I'm gonna go 12 feet. So this would be like the first floor of my model. And at this point, I can start to copy. So kind of like last year, like you can do a lot in Rhino with very basic commands. Copy, copy, copy. You can also select points. Let's just select, too much stuff here, just the points, and I can copy those up as well. Because maybe that'll be useful. Maybe you can use things like the mirror command. These are off a little bit. Feel free to use the gumball to kind of eyeball things, get them sort of close. But the idea being, now you can also start to draw lines that maybe connect these things to the center points. Maybe you draw lines that connect across this way. Maybe we take all of our points here. We'll do a few more lines. I'm doing everything kind of as straight lines because it's expensive to bend steel in curves, or wood for that matter. I'm gonna grab all of these. I'm gonna copy. Let's just keep the same 12 feet vertical spacing. Copy. Same 12 feet vertical spacing. Right? And then now maybe I'm thinking back, the exterior of the expo pavilion has got those vertical or those diagonal Vierendeel trusses. So maybe I'm like, all right, I'm gonna draw a line between these. Or I'm gonna do a line between the midpoint. So I start to get like a V-shaped truss thing, right? Some more. We can use the copy command. We can copy this. Maybe I want some parts of these to be double height. And maybe these center columns are just, they are what they are. Straight columns that get extruded all the way to the vertical. Okay, so kind of working with extrusions and working with lines to frame out, like we in Get Down today are gonna be talking about these a lot. We love these. These are beautiful. We think there should be maybe using this as, you know, pretty strong DNA within your projects. Like just because you're working on something in structures doesn't mean it's not applicable in design. Basically, these should have gravity, and you should feel yourself being pulled towards them as you're making your designs a little bit. And at this point, we can do, I'm going to show you guys later using Grasshopper, like smarter ways to do this. But for now, for example, this piece of balsa wood that I have, if I want to kind of move it along this line, I could, you can see the curve is not perfectly perpendicular with the line, so maybe I would want to rotate it, but I think for these purposes, these are sketch models, we're moving fast, let's just use the sweep command. So I can sweep using the rail, the shape. Let's see if this works. There we go. Boom. So that gives us kind of the shape as the outline. And so and then you can change it. Say that you have a different piece of wood that is thicker, right? It's more square. Or you're using, I'm seeing a lot of you guys using these bamboo sticks. What do you think, Gadon? Should we use these? Or stick with the balsa?
Well, they have two profiles.
Yeah, so maybe these bamboo sticks are like your smaller profile. And so you can have just like a little circle that you extrude. Question?
Should we disregard like the use of trace in the digital?
Yeah, and then so for the trace, for example, this here, this is going to be my curtain. We can extrude it, right? And like maybe that's there, and I copy it, and I don't want it to be in every floor. So I'm going to skip a floor and go here. Here, I'm going to change it. At this point, I'm making my own building, so I'm not going to worry too much that this is exactly how the Reliance building looks. And maybe this gets squished down a little bit. So I'm starting to think about this as, I go into the top view. Let's get the one on the ground here. Copy. Maybe I rotate. Use the rotate command. And the scale command. So same as last year, like scale, rotate, move. You can do a lot with just these. Mirror. So there I'm putting in, that's not great, but. Maybe these bays are starting to define maybe what could become an interior courtyard. Scale, 1D. We're not worrying too much about modeling every single piece of the building, okay? And so there's a very good reason why I'm rendering this just as line drawings here. Or let's go back to like pen mode. Mine's better. So it's just what's in gray being the wood, and what's in blue being trace paper. We're not going to introduce too many new things. or not, we're not going to introduce too much detail. We don't want you to spend too much time like modeling things that don't matter. Like the curtain is really just what it is. It's a wrapper for this thing. So that's kind of like one way I would think about doing this, where you're literally just taking a tracing of maybe your collage plans. Maybe it's a tracing of what I kind of did here, like just a freestyle composition of the two plans going together. Or maybe you're just not tracing your plans and you're using them as a reference. So if I was to copy this over, like maybe this one, just the first floor, using the array command. Let's say I array it 4 times, 4 times, and the spacing is 12 feet by 12 feet. Bam, like there's a grid. And then I was looking at the MVRDV one, for example, and these are gonna be circles. That are extruded.
John, you talked about the importance of scale as your model.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention that. Thanks. You guys all have low poly 3D people, right? From last year?
Somewhere.
Yeah. Use them. So these little scale people versus my building, you can see it's basically like a 50-foot tall structure. In this case, I've chosen 12-foot floor-to-floors. The Reliance building, if you were to, I have it here, actually look at the elevation of it. So this is the elevation drawing, like off of the internet. Here's like a little scale bar, and I can use my distance command to double check the distance of one floor. And Rhino's telling me that it's like 13 3/4 feet. There's actually like 2.5 feet of space for where the beams are. And then the rest of the space this is all glass, right? And so there's sort of a rhythm in the height. And so if you guys are like, I don't know what the heights are, you can look for elevations of your buildings and kind of work off that. Or what I would say is just let's divide up by 3. And so 12-ish feet are going to be a nice way to kind of fill the volume, right? But you should have scale people in your models. If you don't, I can add this file back to the templates folder for you guys to reference. All of the drawings are at 1/8 inch equals a foot. So if I was to make a floor plan of this thing, or look at my floor plan, and I was to print this on a piece of paper that was 11 by 17, the scale would be 1/8 inch equals a foot. It'll fit better on 8.5 by 11. So, you know, everyone's models are that size. But if you're having kind of trouble kind of thinking about how big this thing is, like put the people in there. I don't want to keep going too long. I want you to chime in about some things that you're thinking about when you would, or things that you would think about when you're going to do this, or if you were to do this assignment, things you would like them to consider.
Just to at that point, the important thing is that you're modeling in real world scale, right? Exporting to 18-inch drawings. I think it's important to keep modeling, thinking about the real world, because as you transition from this assignment to the next one, you'll be better positioned to move across assignments. Looking at this, what we're asking you to do, I think there's 3 clear ways to go about making
Yeah.
And then the third method I would say is to establish a new grid that's based off of your precedent assignment, the matchup. Maybe you see that one column grid is oriented at 30 degrees and the other one is north-south perpendicular. So you can use these two orientations. You can use this new grid to start to lay out hypothetical column network and team network. This, I think, the third method is maybe the most inventive of the three, and allows you to discover as you go. I could imagine a drawn grid related to plan. I could imagine it related to elevation, right? Like you could prop it up and it becomes a truss network in itself. So to me, those are the three methods. There are probably 10 others that you could try. Those are the first three that I would go after. And then as you're going, you're obviously inventing. So if you like what you're doing on a specific model, why not repeat it into another one and test it in a new direction? Yeah, so that's how I would approach anytime working iteratively, is to self-critique and analyze the moments that you are crafting. Like if John says that he likes this Y versus A column, maybe a model just becomes about those two bracing systems, right? So yeah, that's how I would approach the assignment. I
And
think it will be more fun once you're in 3D. It typically is, I think for myself, that's kind of working handcrafted because it allows you to test things quicker at a much faster pace. What do you think, Kevin?
yeah, so another thing I'm doing here is I'm just using the move face command to kind of quote shear these things off to the side. So for example, this wall over here, if I was like, let's isolate this. Like here's a wall, and I just wanted these things to turn into Y's and K's, right? I could make points, have the points connect with lines. I could use the sweep command to sweep my my profiles, right? You guys would be thinking about the profiles. Or I could just have the profile and then use the move face command. This is great, where I can click on a face, like the bottom of this, and select maybe the midpoint and move it over to there. And that's gonna start to connect, because you guys are taking structures, right? So you understand maybe the basic idea of structures is even if we have kind of a cattywampus grid like this, if the forces can continue down, like the engineers won't laugh. we can keep moving forward with our designs and engineers won't go crazy. We drive them a little bit crazy, but hopefully not too crazy. And then scale 1D, scale 1 dimension. So it's just basically we'll stretch things, right? And then copy things. And if you have a certain grid, the 12-foot grid, it makes it a little bit easier. All right, so right now I'm still using like a single thickness of material, like just this thing. Maybe if I was to imagine that this is, you know, 2 of these going across, and then my secondary, I mean, really what we're kind of aiming you guys towards is like posts and beams are thick, rafters and joists are thin, or tie beams are thin. And so we can imagine this thing, if I scale 1D, is actually closer to, I don't know, 3 inches by, call it 10 inches. Not that small. 14 inches. So I'm not being too scientific about this at this point. And then I'm going to use array command. So it's going to copy a bunch of times in the same direction, some distance. I want to do more. Let's do 12. And obviously this is like way faster, right? Like at a certain point, like to make that in sticks might have taken, right, all afternoon, but you can kind of whip something up pretty quickly in a few minutes. It's not pretty, but it's a good start. It's getting me thinking about how I might get closer to this sort of vibe. Kind of like Giorgio's starting to do it a little bit, getting kinked off to the side, but we're missing some of the intermediate columns and stuff. Is this helpful? Kind of break it down a little bit. So if you at this point you are like way out in left field and totally just freestyling off of your collage plans, maybe you step back, re-look at the precedents, at the very least to get things sort of quote right sized. Thinking about the 12, is it 12, is it 15 feet? But you also might learn something fun about the plans. So for example, I was looking at this one. Like the Reliance plan. I'm taking the corner here, but say I was to take somewhere in the middle. Here I start to learn, if I hide this, that the grid is all messed up. Like the ones on the outside match, but the ones on the inside don't. So maybe that gets really interesting for me to start to imagine. Here's one. I'm going to copy it 3 times, 12 feet up, 12 feet, 24 feet, 36 feet. I'm going to take the middle one, or the first 2, I guess, and just rotate them 90 degrees. And at this point, I could use loft commands maybe is another way to do it. Maybe I loft between these. Gives me a nice grid. Maybe I loft between totally losing it. Lofting is a little bit harder because you got to make sure your points are aligned. And it's a funny curvy loft, but again, you blow all your money on bending steel, so we can just turn our loft into straight sections. So then this thing is now this sort of zigzaggy thing, so I could repeat that process, and all I've taken is that Reliance building and like rotated it as I go up, and I start to get this little bit more lively grid structure, let's say. Okay, I'm pushing your patience, I know. Any questions? So what we would like you guys to do this week is to kind of work through this, maybe through conversations with your TAs and conversations with Godot and myself, zero in on maybe out of the physical models that you've made, one that is worth making some elaborations or iterations of in the computer, or feel free to like go back to your sketchbook and take an idea from your sketchbook and elaborate it in the computer. The goal is to continue building your collection or family of sketch models, okay? But to have kind of a start, so you have something in Rhino, because at the end or next week, you guys are going to kind of pick one and you're going to elaborate it inside of Rhino. So you're going to spend more time making like a nicer version. Again, not meaning you're not going to model all the details of it, but like a nicer frame and curtain model. Okay, and then we'll make a drawing of that, and that'll be what you're going to show for the midterm. The midterm is kind of like a progress check-in to see where you guys are at. So there'll be another tutorial coming up that will show, to reiterate, we did it all in 172 last year, how to take Rhino models and pull them out into Illustrator and try to illustrate them, make them look pretty. So we're going to kind of make one like patent style 3D drawing of one of these models. Okay, but use this week as like designing. You still have time to design before you focus on kind of producing that drawing. Good down. Other thoughts before we let them keep working?
Yeah, I think be mindful of the levels you're creating, right? One strategy to have equal spacing. It's another one to say that portions within your plan or building section, I guess that's what these are, could be double height or triple height, right? You can choose to selectively delete out columns in order to achieve that. And then another method that I don't think I mentioned is the unit method. So that's why columns that place. It's okay to use that and repeat that across the model to create a unitized system. So you can invent a piece and then you copy that piece around to create a space for it.
And let me just show that real quick, 'cause that's worth talking about. Let's do both these the same. So like, here's a unit. It's not pretty at all, but let's call that a unit. So you could take this, we could group it, or we could even block it, but we don't need to block quite yet. Let's just say group, and then I could copy this thing. All right, maybe got a bunch of these things. Maybe they start to copy. Maybe I'm rotating some of them somehow and breaking them apart. Like here's a unit that starts to get kind of interesting. Just through, it's not symmetrical, but through some interesting rotating, I can start to build it up into something that doesn't look like a single unit. Sound good? Is this sound doable to you guys? Just help break it down a little bit. Okay, so let's get to work. I want you guys to touch base with your TAs today. What I'd like you guys also to do is to have a reading discussion. If you haven't already, I'll talk with the TAs about that, but let's focus on the models for the most part today.